Welcome to Draw Process. I'm Ike. It's good to be with you today. I'm drawing page 57 of First Sun and Sword, episode 1, or issue 1, Crocodile City. So here we go. Page 57 script. The door swings open before them. It is pushed open by Farah. Dead men all around her in the courtyard. Her reaction at dead Croc, then at Sword's foot. You did it, and your foot is broken. Then gripping her spear, is that Denise, or shall I kill this one for you? When I say or, I mean I could say one or the other. Sword is now passing her, and he's like, no, let her go. Not the most engaging dialogue, but that's what's in the script, and I know I can bring it more to life as I draw it and write it in the final word balloons, placement, just adjust the dialogue. So my first thumbnails here, this is like a POV shot. It goes from seeing Farah opening the door. Now on the last page, we didn't even see the door yet. So the door needs to be established. Like our view has now gone to the door and her opening it. I did that in one panel, and then I did like her POV, which I just turned into an over the shoulder shot through the open doors. I wasn't happy with that, so I erased that out. We need to establish that she is at the doors to this room and she's pushed them open. It needs to be more clear. The first panel, you can tell she's moving something, and she's sticking her head in a dark place, but that isn't fully establishing what's happening. So instead of going to her POV, I'm going to really what we see, what Sword and Sun see, which is the doors opening and her there before the background of the courtyard. So this felt better. You'll see that I changed it even again when I went to do the final page. I grabbed the ink pen there just to help you see what I scribbled in. Really trying to focus on shapes, where these blocks of positive and negative space are. So that's why it's a very scribbly shadow. It's just to indicate where that would be. So we have to show Farah's reaction to what she's seeing. She sees that King Croc is dead. The dragoness is laying on the floor or sitting, crouching on the floor in pain, immobilized. She sees Sword and Sun. So how do we capture that she's seeing everything and her reaction to it? I was thinking we would just do 2 panels. That was my first thought. Let's just do 2 panels of her face, showing her looking at one spot in the room and another, and her reaction. I wasn't really happy with that, but that's what I came up with at first. And then here, a nice, very low angle camera, because it's looking up, but the camera would be positioned very low, across the silhouette basically of Sword's legs. One leg, being holding the foot up with the ripped foot. And so what that panel is there is the ripped foot and her reaction to it. And by using this extreme camera angle, I'm able to capture both in one panel. And her word balloon reaction to that. Now she's, pointed her spear toward the dragoness, and she's like, do you want me to kill her? I thought for this, a nice long panel, just showing her facing that direction, pointing her spear like she's ready to fight, while Sword passes her here. It allows for room for the word balloons too. Her balloon and then his. And he's walking towards the light and she's towards the room, the darkened room. So that is all the thumbnail I had to work with going into the page, knowing that I was going to make some changes on the page. This is page 57, and then there's 58, 59, and then 60, 61 is a double page spread. I like to end my comics on an odd page number so that you get when you turn the page of the comic, you get a double page spread. You get 2 pages there before the comic ends. So I like how that feels. So I always try to shoot for that odd page number as the final page. In this case, it would have ended on page 60. So I'm going to turn it into a double page spread, stretch that image out. I've already drawn, I've drawn this page now. At the time of recording this, it's after I've drawn this actually last week. And then this week, or last weekend, this week I drew page 58. So now that video will come out next week. And I'll do that voiceover soon for that. And then I just have, 59 and then the 60-61 combo or double page spread. So I'm very close to finishing this issue. I haven't started writing the next one yet, but yeah, we're close to wrapping this up. And I do have some ideas that are brewing for it, and that's been nice because a few weeks ago I didn't have a lot of ideas brewing, and now I'm starting to get like a feeling of what things would be right, what things feel right for the characters, the sorts of relationships and problems, environment, conflict, do we need a villain and what kind of villain? And it's all starting to make sense. When it comes to, this story, more than any other, I think I'm developing a good amount of relationships and a sandbox for me to play in and tell a story in. And the characters, at least to me, have pretty good motivations, flaws, relationship issues. It gives me enough to play with, to tell each, to come up with a new story and to keep things moving. So I think I'm doing something right, but I was telling my parents actually about the story for this issue. And as I told them, I realized I'm feeling almost emotional saying this. It feels almost too honest, very honest what I'm saying about Sword and his story, his background, which you will probably learn more about in the next issue, and what that story is for him, what his issue is here, and that is that was showing me, oh yeah, even though this story is a playground for me and it's action and I just get to play, I do get to put meaningful things in it. I am putting my soul into it. And it's not a real serious comic. It's much more lighthearted, you could say, in a lot of ways. But it's almost better, for me, because then that's a better vehicle for real soul to come across. I also think by putting this in not the modern world, where you could have any number of ethnicities, religious beliefs, things happening. You could have human sacrifice next door, all sorts of marriage customs, whatever. But it allows, because it's not set in our modern setting, I get to say things. I get to have my characters do things and say things that are taboo in our culture. But because it's a silly, sword and sorcery book, I can, the reader is along for the ride. They buy in, and then they get to see things about people, that they wouldn't have been able to see set in our setting. So that gives me some hope too of that I've chosen the right playground and the right vehicle for story. I can do anything and say anything I want. There's ways that Farah here calls Sword her master, and that brings up some issues, and then there's she's a woman, he's a man. Is she like a slave to him? Or and in her backstory, she kind of was. But because of this setting, you're invited to suspend judgment on anybody and not see it through a lens of a modern lens. Like you might, if you hear that she was a slave, then it's like, well, what did that mean for them? What was that experience? Instead of like, oh, slavery bad. That's awful. Sword is an awful person. The end, no knee jerk, judgment, because you're invited to find out what it means. That even the words, slavery or something don't mean what you think they mean when you're in this world. I've even made up curse words, things like the scale lickers. They call them a scale licker if it's a person that serves the lizard men and for money, for their own gain, and they just kind of like do whatever without a morality behind it. They betray their own kind. They lick the scales of the lizards, so they're called scale lickers. But then silly things like just FUT. Sounds like a cuss word. That's what they say. Here she says something about Sacred Mother's udder. So they're not going to say like Jesus because there's no Jesus here, right? And they may not say God, but what would they say? And I can have them say something playful, And I find archaeology and ancient cultures fascinating, but it's not necessary that I do research, a lot of research to capture what someone would say in that setting. The point is, I have humans here in a completely different cultural setting than one you would know, and I'm just imagining it, but it's in the past too, right? It's implied this is our planet and it's the past. I think that's interesting too. But how much do we know about human history and civilizations and how those relationships were in prehistory? So it's fascinating to me to take a human and our psychology and our complex social relations and put that in some new setting, right? So yes, I think I've chosen well. Here I played with Farah's face expression a little bit here because it was kind of hard to decide. First off, it's a little challenging to put the shadows right on the front of the face, but also what expression do I want to capture? Like just how contorted is her face, and stern or surprised. Trying to get that unique expression. She's going to be glad that Sword is alive, but this also means that his fate is sealed after killing King Croc. The Emperor will be after him for sure. Like there's, this just seals the fate of the path that Sword is on, that she does not approve of, but she's probably going to join his side in. So there's a lot going on in her head right now. And she's also just amazed how is this even possible that a person could beat a lizard king, Yeah. So I guess that's it on the story. What I'm trying to do with story. I guess, it's There's something playful about, I get to play loose with reality. It's something playful about the world, but then I get to say serious things. I think this has to do with my personality, and I see it in what I try to do with my art too, that I go with low resolution images, you could say, like kind of blocky, not very precise line work, but the images themselves, the construction of the image, is a strong composition. That's, I focus on that, showing strong images, expansive images of cityscapes and stuff, whatever we need for the story, but in this low resolution, not a lot of detail and stuff. There's something where I'm not very disciplined in a way. Like I'm not meticulous. I just want to make a mess, make a mess of things in a way, but with a sharp edge to it. The lines, the graphic nature of my images are sharp. The compositions are sharp. In their messiness, in their kind of and they're a little messy too. They're not. It kind of makes a mess of things. Not the best anatomy and so on. And that's how I use language. I mean, it's how I talk in this video. I try to, I'm going for astute observations, clarity and honesty, and saying sharp things, but with kind of messy language, no script, so on. Same thing with the story. And when I think of the kind of comic artist and writer I want to be, it's definitely got something to do with this. And when I look at my earlier work, this has always been there. And this is me, and this is the direction that I need to go. Others may need to go a different direction. Your direction might be different, but I guess for me, I'm paying attention to what feels right when I am really in the flow, really expressing myself, acting out of joy or love, kind of hard to put words to, but I'm not just trying to do what I think I should do, what the market wants, whatever. But listening to the sort of inner guide there, and I've noticed artists that their comics might be like a little more like reserved and controlled, and then when you see and I was this way before too. There, if they just draw from imagination or just sketch on a paper, their drawings look different than their finished line work. Maybe it's because later they bring in reference and later they ink separately, and they have a way of refining it, and there's nothing wrong with that. That can introduce a certain style and character to the art, to introduce these, let's call them artificial layers to your production. At the same time, there's something that's really being underdeveloped and unexpressed, that's really like authentic, you could say. If your pencils look a certain way when you're just sketching in your sketchbook, and then your final comic pages have a different look to them, you should consider why that is. I get wanting to refine and put your best foot forward, but in the long run, in the 10-year plus time frame of developing yourself as an artist, a comic book artist, do you want to move further and further towards your honest sketching, your honest expression? And you don't have to, but I do. And I keep thinking of that too. My pencils getting different than my inks, and like maybe looser, more expressive. And then I rein them in, and I'm like, maybe I should even switch the inking tool that I use instead of going with the deadline. I could use a brush or something to try to capture more of that energy in my pencils. And this applies to the pencils themselves, because there's a way that when I ink on top of my pencils, I don't print it out and ink on a separate page, as you can see here, as I'm doing here. Because of that, I tend to try, like sometimes I will find myself trying to keep the pencils light on the page, because it'll make it easier to ink later and erase and sort of see as I ink. And not too scribbly, not take too much time like scribbling and adding layers, constructing the panel and the perspective. But you'll notice in my sketchbooks how rough and quick things move. And then when I come to pencil my page, I don't do that. That's arbitrary, right? That's that extra layer that's getting in the way. Could I, without going to digital, because I don't want to do digital pages where you could introduce layers and just draw on top of a prior layer, but could I let my pencils get that rougher, sketchier constructed look to them, maybe even heavier on the page, and then ink on top of that, or if I have to, print it out and ink on top. But whatever I have to do to allow, and I hope I don't have to print it out, but allow the free expression in my pencils to not be like hindered by like, oh, you have, how does this need to look for the inking purposes? These are ways I think about how to move in how to guide my development, right? Move in the right direction of what feels right for me, the artist I'm becoming. I've been thinking lately about that sort of authentic line in your work, capturing that authentic drawing and sketching, the way you perceive the world more authentically in the finished page. And there's that other layer of just in my own mind, when I put my pencil to paper, am I being authentic, right? If you were a writer, are you sitting down to write and you have entered a particular state of mind, removed distractions, and there is an unfolding of I don't know, from an unfolding that's like playful or almost loving, like I'm going to give to this page I'm typing, but this applies to drawing, to this page I'm drawing. I'm going to pour myself into it. I'm going to, and as I do that, I'm going to do it in like this loving way that I'm bringing life to it, giving birth to it. I don't know. These are all metaphors, right? But I've noticed when I'm drawing to not have distractions, like something playing, even music, but that it would just be me and the paper, and me letting it unfold, right? Letting, really trying to express, I guess you would say, express myself on the page. And I feel like I mean that differently than just like we should express ourselves, our authentic selves. So I hesitate on this language because it's not so much that we need greater self-expression and that freedom to express yourself. It's like a state of mind and a way you engage with the page and with the art that brings even your emotions to bear on the page. That you're sort of cutting a piece of yourself off and putting it on the page. And that, maybe that helps to describe this act of love, to put a piece of yourself on the page, to draw in blood, not literally, but to draw with your blood, when with your love and so on. So, or I guess, with your anger, maybe it's an angry book, but these are metaphors. I'm just saying, for me, there is a mental state, an emotional state. There's a way that I can engage with my practice that is very, very rich, right? This is not just factory line production. I'm not deadening myself, numbing myself, and just going into factory production mode. I am trying to bring all of myself to it. That to be a comic artist is not just to have specific skills and just like apply those skills on the page that a robot could also apply. That to be the best you can be, you need to bring all of yourself as a human to that work. And as you do that, you'll get better at it, and it'll become more obvious to you, what direction you should be going. And I feel good about like where I'm at this point after a year of working on this book. And my art, I feel like I feel more confident than ever that my style is mine, that it's not mimicry or trying to be like something else. It's just me. And I think that's because of this work that I've done, this sort of mental work, emotional work, and this way that I pour myself into the pages, that it's more and more clear, this is me, this is how I do it, and I want to get better and improve in it, but there's less doubts about what that would be. And in that comes, clarity of like, if I was offered a job to draw a certain comic, is this the right comic for me or not? I would know much better now than I would have because of that, because I know myself better. And I mean, that's the great thing about being an indie creator. And it's hard to make money. It's hard to make a career of it, and the opportunities aren't that strong these days. But at the same time, it's possible that this could be a renaissance for comic creation, because people are going to make art because they want to, and there's less of a reason than ever to produce a house style. Everyone doesn't have to pursue just one house style and all look the same, which is what you would do when there's a really strong market, let's say. Superhero comics, for example. So maybe we can get back to some roots of self-expression, unique individual stories, personal stories, all sorts of styles that we couldn't imagine before, that haven't been seen before. Grown out of trial and error and people's own development, and not so much out of trying to match a house style or do it in the way someone else did. And it's also a great time to have community and connect with other people that are on that same journey, but they're doing it in their own way. So the ability to learn from each other is and develop real community culture. I'm further describing this renaissance that we could have. I had to pause my voiceover recording and come back to it now after a little break. One of the things I'm doing lately I just started doing is scrubbing through, like kind of going through a movie, picking images from it that are nice compositions and kind of spread them out over the course of the film, because that's fun to kind of capture the story through these images too. And do quick sketches, very quick. In the time that it takes to watch the movie, I would more than have these done. These are a few minutes per sketch. And I don't watch the movie. I just go to that image and pause it. And these are movies I've seen before, so I don't like spoil it for myself, or I have some insight into the story. So pick these images, quickly sketch the composition, and a little bit of work on, capturing a little bit of anatomy and stuff, like the perspective, because so I get to work on some of these skills in detail if I want to, but mainly the overall composition of the image from great films, hopefully, not just things I'm a fan of. Because I'm trying to get insights from picture making that's outside of comic books when it comes to like my own development and becoming my own style, my own practice. And like that renaissance was talking about, if I'm referencing other things beyond comic books, especially older films, and not newer stuff, then I'm learning some new constructions of images and compositions, and I'm getting, and I'm working on perspective and anatomy and stuff to some degree too. And to me, that's the key of making comics. The key thing is when I'm sketching that thumbnail and I've got to lay out some perspective and throw the figures in and compose a nice image, nice positive and negative space, and then do that for each panel. That is the main thing. And I'm directly practicing that now in this practice I do by using a film, using movies. I used Suspiria first. That's all, you can see it on my Instagram. I started Interstellar now. I'm going to do that movie, but I can do them so quickly that I could, a few hours a week, and I can do one movie a week on these things. The sketching I had been doing that was more maybe just an environment or directly practicing anatomy, that stuff has been nice, but now I'm moving towards focusing on the composition of pictures with, that are story, that are figure and environment, and maybe getting a little anatomy and perspective work and stuff in that time. So I feel really good about what this is going to do for me. And here's the finished page. You actually did it, and your foot is muddled up. So, yeah, she's quite the avoidant person. Shall I kill the dragoness for you? No, not today. These are the words I chose for this page. In the next page, they're going to continue the conversation just a little bit. I chose not to get too into that, like I could have gone with Farah knowing recognizing the dragoness as Denise, someone from Swords Past, a little exchange about, oh no, what does this mean? Like, And I chose to cut that, keep it very brief, and kind of set it up where Farah didn't know her really, or didn't recognize her. So I didn't want to put too much attention on that moment after hitting the climax moment first. And so they're on their way to board a ship, cross the sea, and begin the next journey. That's it for this week. Be the practice of your art, and I'll be doing that over here. See you next week.